Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Monster Wilds talk. We're talking more Title Update 3, Omega, and now we have our proper guide for Omega planets. There are of course two versions, the one that you first face once you've got Hunter rank 41 plus, and then the Savage version which is unlocked after that, and also being Hunter rank 100 or higher. If you want to access that quest, then you need to go to join quest or post quest, bring yourself to events, and then this permanent event quest, Planets Protocol Savage, that's the one you're looking for. If you go to the assignments, you can see the original one that's not the Savage version, as well as the special Hunt for Nerzilla, which you can't run again. No event quest to go repeat it, just the Savage version. Feels like an oversight. Either way, yep, the Savage version's a little bit harder with 3 feints as your limit with a time limit of 35 minutes. So what can I tell you to help your experience with this hunt? Let's start with the important weaknesses. There are 4 listed breakable points: the head, the rear power unit, the forelegs, and the hind legs. For most of this hunt, you will be attacking the legs, opening wounds, and trying to break them, which will knock Omega down, opening up important DPS windows and interrupting what it's doing, especially when it's in its enrage mode. Whenever it is knocked down, you go for the head because it's going to be a great hit zone in general, but obviously if you're trying to hold Omega's attention, you hit the head in general because that's what generates enmity. In regards to the weaknesses of this, you're going to be using Thunder and Dragon as your main sources. Thunder being the better of the two on average, where it's a 3-star on the head, but then on the legs, which is where you're mostly attacking if you're not tanking, Thunder wins out at 3-star compared to Dragon, which has 2-star. However, the rear power unit, so when you knock it on its back, that's when you can access that for some solid DPS. Dragon would actually be better there. But throughout the fight, you're hitting their legs the most, so Thunder's the one to go for overall. As a warning then, as it shows us, it is completely immune to flash pods, lure pods, and traps, so no point bringing those really. Quick word on the unique mechanics of the fight. Again, you generate aggro by attacking the head. This builds up enmity, and by holding aggro, you take the attention off your team, letting them just free DPS the legs, which really helps actually have enough DPS to win. Now, obviously the other super unique and important aspect of this fight is the health cut status. This is basically a nasty max health cut for its duration, putting you to roughly 75% max health. So if someone has this on them, you don't want them to be taking aggro while they have it. However, if someone is confident, maybe they're a lance or other tanky setup that they've got, maybe they're willing to take this debuff and stay with the aggro to let others keep that DPS going. What this looks like is a special attack that's fired from the power unit on top of Omega. It's this glowing ball that flies at you. You want to avoid being hit by that if you can. It takes a moment to charge up. Omega clearly aims its whole body and head at the target, and the power unit begins to glow brightly before firing this large orb out. Next, let's talk about the key item, Soul of the Pictomancer. You'll unlock this by doing the story pretty quick, and you want to put this item in a loadout, since it's an item that must be in your pouch to then access the skills. For the Pictomancer spells, you have 3 options. 2 you need to cast in a row before you get to the final, sort of ultimate one. Each one has infinite uses and long cooldowns of 30 seconds each though. The spells deal increased damage to Omega specifically compared to other targets, with increased wound creation speed as well, which is important for the Omega fight. So to cast a spell, you need to put your weapon away and just press the item bar button. Then you get this little spell bar at the bottom middle of your screen, tracking what spells you've done in sequence. So it's just spell 1 to 2 to then Morg of Aegis as the finale, and then you repeat. Your spells are Pom Motif, which is like this orange ball drop. This is going to be great for dealing with the adds and dealing good damage on the legs. The Wing Motif, similar, you deal ticking damage with a Wind Blast instead. Also great with dealing with the flying hands and killing micros actually. And finally you have Morg of Aegis, which comes out surprisingly quick, the Super Beam, dealing big damage, but only available after casting the other 2 spells first, and it was shown in the guide video interrupting Omega's slide charge, so it's potent in that way where it can stop Omega for a moment. In conclusion, the Pictomancer spells are easy to weave into your gameplay, deal great damage, and are impactful utility. You want to use them on the legs to open wounds to help control the fight, and use them at every chance that you can. In regards to the Dark Knight stuff, to cut to the chase on this is a lot less smooth to work into Omega fights where the Pictomancer spells just are. It requires a literal weapon to access the Great Sword here and its special Dark Side skill. On the other hand, you have the Bale armor set where you access its special stuff from the set bonuses. That's 2-piece and 4-piece. For the 2 set, you have Dark Arts, recoverable damage increases elemental attack, and some greatsword level 3 charge slashes are strengthened. Meanwhile, 4 set allows you to perform the special action Blackest Night, which is that super potent shield. The mechanics for this are cool, but unfortunately not that helpful for your initial hunts, unless maybe you're playing greatsword with a build around that concept. Here's a quick setup guide for running this, especially in regards to solo. Main thing here is your item loadout. I recommend you create a new loadout for Omega hunting specifically. Obviously you need the slot for Solar Pictomancer to be able to cast those spells. You're in an icy environment, so bringing hot drinks is just logical. Traps, flash pods, lure pods, that kind of thing, they don't work, which means you can free up space to bring other useful items. Like bringing Dust of Life and Life Powder for healing for you and the team, which I strongly recommend in the Savage version. Actually having both offensive and defensive powders in Hardshell Demon, your Mega Armor and Demon Drugs, the Adamant Seeds and the Might Seeds. Basically, go hard, have a proper loadout for Omega. On that note, normally we'd be using the Corrupted Mantle or Ideal Mantles for whatever setup you've got. I actually recommend Rocksteady over that, because this is a massive damage reduction while it's going. It prevents you from being interrupted. Basically, you pop this on and you're a little bit safer from some of those nasty combo mechanics. Right, quick question. Can you solo Omega? Yes, but there are some considerations to make. Omega doesn't have health scaling, which means if you're completely on your own or in a full party, Omega has the same health. That's a big red flag for solo play, unfortunately. So if you're going to do it solo, strongly recommend you bring support hunters. They'll hold aggro for you. They'll deal damage that wouldn't exist if you were true solo. They'll also help you with, powders and that kind of thing. They're only helpful to bring, and when they can't, it doesn't drain yours. So really, there's no downside other than the fact that you really want to be true solo for whatever reason. Their output scales with the challenge you're against. So with the 9-star version of Omega, the Savage version, they're actually stronger there as well. To manage this, go to settings under your quest list, put max members to 4, put multiplayer settings to only support hunters. I have it on automatic SOS flares so they immediately come in and I don't have to do it myself, but that's up to you. Then at the bottom, select support hunters. As you can see, I've got 3 in specific. We have Alyssa, the lance user, who's basically got interesting unique mechanics for this fight where they attack the head to intentionally gain aggro and even make callouts about it. So they're probably the best pick overall. Second to that is Kai with the hunting horn for buffs and healing and other benefits of just having a hunting horn user. And I personally picked Mina because they're the other user outside of Olivia and Rosso that actually has a shield. So they might hold aggro for you. SNS users are more likely to use items and keep you alive. So I think these 3 are the best to go for. And my god are they impactful. Alright, time to talk about the fight mechanics. I'm going to describe each mechanic and advice around it. First up, we have the Omega Micros and Shields, the tiny little baby versions that spew out and run to targets and explode on them. These are a source of blue shields, protecting you from many Omega and clone attacks, which is great for DPS. But the ones that generate the shield are specifically the blue or thunder covered little outlined Micros, so not everyone you defeat spawns one, but many will. Just keep an eye out for the blue ones and kill them first. Then tank Omega under the shield. Other ways to generate shields exist, like defeating the clone, destroying a head wound on Omega, or using special slinger ammo to drop a shield on an aimed location. Those spawn after breaking a leg wound, so there's lots of ways to use these shields, and they're super helpful. Next, let's talk about those flying fists that come out slowly. They target lock to a target and slowly fly to them. Later in the fight, it'll be multiple or everyone, so you got to deal with it. They're not actually bad on their own, but when Omega's doing a different attack at the same time, it's a lot to deal with. You can easily guard against them, but with the small impact, again, you can be comboed. Any kind of little instance of damage knocks them away and sort of diffuses them. Pictomancer spells work great for that purpose, but I also really like them for landing perfect evades with dual blades and triggering other things intentionally off them, like perfect guarding and triggering a clash, where you get a unique animation that punches Omega, and that's a little DPS window there. Next, we have the mustard bombs, which get pretty hefty at the end of the fight. It's a special rocket blast that occurs from the submarine-style sensor that pops up on top of Omega. It seeks a target and locks on, warning you of the attack on the right side of the screen. You have a good amount of time to place this away from your team and the fight, so you should. There's also a brief period of travel after it fires, allowing you to sprint out of the AoE before it lands. But be aware that the mustard bomb leads a fire zone on the ground for a while after. If you stand in those, it's nasty ticking damage. So that's why you want to make sure you move them away from the active fight rather than under Omega. Right, those telegraphed circles on the ground that come out, those are the fast-firing rockets that regularly occur. It's an orange circle under you and the rest of the party. Definitely move out of them before they land, but you can guard. Omega really likes to combo this attack out with the flying attacks, or slamming his body down on a target at the same time. Later in the fight, he'll combo these back to back, so you don't want to be caught out by that. Another common attack is the blue beams. Multiple lines that drag out from underneath Omega from low to high. These can occur on all 4 sides of Omega and multiple sides at once during the enrage and later. There is actually a small gap between them though. Physically, you can step between those gaps and not get hit, so you don't even have to deal with them. And the gap gets bigger the further away you are as a handy detail. Other concerning attacks would be the underbelly vents. These spew out fire, so a little nasty AoE from it as a close range attack, or spread telegraphed attacks in 4 long red lines that you definitely want to avoid. You can perfect evade these and that kind of thing, but there's gaps between them on the diagonal locations, so maybe make use of those. Omega has some movement attacks too, like the ground charges that it does, sliding in a deadly line forward and back, generally used if all the targets are too far away for it to melee. But keep in mind the Pictomancer spells can interrupt those charges. Okay, next we have Larboard and Starboard. It is there in the fight after all. You get a warning on the side of your screen that they're about to happen. It's like these multiple lasers fired and swept in a cleave. This occurs on Omega's left or right. Larboard will occur on Omega's left. Starboard will occur on Omega's right. But the cheeky thing Omega does is after one of these attacks, it often flips around. So the left side might suddenly be facing you when it wasn't a moment ago. The key is to look at the head location and consider left is Larboard and move accordingly. It takes some practice. Larboard is left. That's the way I remember it. Okay, next up we have the Enrage mode, Pantocrator mode. The sensor on the head begins spinning like crazy and gives off this red glow. During this phase, he's way more aggressive. Things like the beam attacks happen on multiple sides at once. Omega will start to fire those line lasers, like a big white beam that also tracks a player so it slowly turns during it. That's a great DPS window if you're not the target, or if you can get fully behind it while you're the target, it's quite slow to turn. And you can line of sight this by hiding behind cover, it won't go through walls. To disable this Enrage mode, you need to open wounds on the legs and break enough of them to literally bring Omega down on its side. As a reminder, Pictomancer spells deal bonus damage and wound creation against Omega, which will be fantastically used against Omega's legs in this phase. Next we have the Delta attack, which is basically his super attack. This is when he flies into the air, spews out all the little Micros Omegas, and then spawns a Nerzilla clone. At that point, Omega just kind of ignores you and starts channeling the Delta attack. This is a time limit to defeat the Nerzilla clone before the Delta attack can complete. You'll be warned about how quickly it's charging and what percent it's at the bottom of your screen. Be aware then that the Nerzilla clone has 3 special Omega attacks. The 4 beams fired up and landing around on the diagonals, a single fast line blast that comes out in front of the clone with a shockwave reverb after, and then a pre-warned style beam attack, which is a full 360 spin, casting that line beam. You're warned that that's about to happen as the lights spawn, do this little spin around the clone before, and then the real thing happens. My advice for this is to make use of bubbles. The mini micros will allow you to completely ignore those different beam attacks by standing in the shield. This opens fantastic DPS windows against this monster. Anyway, if you're successful, defeat the clone in time, you get the safe bubble, you get a little time there to sharpen, eat buff food again, prepare for the next phase. And yeah, the phase changes alongside the music. So you got the iconic Escape, which is Omega's very own theme playing from this point on. And keep in mind that this Nerzilla clone is weak to fire, not thunder, it's not Omega, which means maybe having a second weapon that is a fire weapon could serve you in that DPS window. And to be honest, my experience with the normal version of this fight, it was completely fine with a thunder weapon, but the Savage version, having that extra DPS is worth considering. In the final areas then, Omega will kind of progress through the dahaad fight locations. In area 3 and then 4, you have multiple boulders that can be dropped down. These add some much needed damage into the fight, so make use of them. I also think it's a great idea to not mount Omega until you reach these later phases where things are harder after the Delta attack. When he's enraged or more dangerous, this is when you want your interruptions. You don't want to waste them. I should also mention the new endemics that can be useful, like the cactuar or the little vine guys. You can trigger these to do some nasty AoE damage, but the problem here is that it will hurt you and your team as well as enemies, so use them like a trap that can be really helpful, but definitely be careful not to hit yourself or allies with them. And if you're communicating, warn people. You don't want that to backfire. But yeah, overall the final area is when Omega just starts going nuts and is by far at its most dangerous. It's faster, it's more erratic in its movement and attacks. and it combos like crazy. That's where obviously managing all the mechanics at once goes a long way here, but to give you just straight up the best advice that will help in this phase, it's to generate bubbles and be in them as much as possible. Ignore those ridiculous combos where it's completely overwhelming by being in a bubble, and it makes a massive difference. Just for a little extra thought, I want to mention some feast meals and their special bonuses. In particular, the Suja meal has exploiter meal on it. This increases the rewards you receive for fully exploiting a wound. In short, this means when you break a wound, you generate a single resource from that target. So this is a way to get, say, savage omega parts without successfully killing it, which if you're struggling, this is a fantastic thing to have. It's very much comparable to the carver meal, which you can get from the Azus meal. This allows you to get extra calves occasionally. You can get really lucky and get a load of extra calves, but that requires you to win. So if you're struggling and not getting wins, go Suja, and if you are getting wins, go carver. In regards to the rewards from this normal version, you have the Greatsword, which has the Dark Side weapon skill on it. This means that you take damage when you're using this weapon, but it's recoverable red health. This works with Resentment as a skill and Latent Power as you damage yourself and trigger that, which are skills found on the armor set. When it comes to the weapon skill, Dark Side, this is going to give you 20 raw while it's active for 30 seconds, but it goes on cooldown for 15 seconds after that. With like a 60% average uptime, that's more like 13 raw on average, which is still very good. Is this competitive with Artian meta? Well, on its own, yes, absolutely, it's better. But with the full armor set, with crit boost and maximizing your effective raw, something like a perfect Artian actually gets better effective raw for the duration of a fight. However, it is interesting because there's all this like vampiric playstyle you can do with that greatsword and a ton of potential there. We're gonna have information about this after really properly testing this when Josh puts out his build video for you guys. Then you have the armor set, which has a lot of resentment, latent power, and a few other skills on it. For the set bonus, you have Dark Arts and the Blackest Night. Dark Arts is going to give you elemental attack while you have that red recovery health. On average, that's a 14% increase to element attack for any weapon that has that set bonus. But for Greatsword Hammer, hunting on bowguns as well, it's a 20% bonus by comparison. Meanwhile, when you have the 4-step bonus, you just get a new skill that's got unlimited usage. That is the Blackest Night, which is a familiar skill from Final Fantasy XIV with the Dark Knight, where you generate this really potent shield. In this case, you pull out the shield, and when it breaks, you get this really potent counterattack. But it puts you to 1 health. In exchange, you get ridiculous lifesteal healing to get yourself back to full really quickly. It's cool, you pull out a greatsword no matter what weapon you've got, and then recover your health really quick. You also get a super buff, making you seriously tanky while you've got that buff for the next 30 seconds. So in conclusion, the 2-set bonus is particularly good for greatsword users. There is potential for element in that regard, though it is very competitive, so we're currently working this out. The 4-set bonus is more of a really cool, fun gimmick, but very invasive on a proper meta set. So really cool and really fun, but that's our first impressions of it. But yeah, for now, that's my quick guide to Omega and everything you need to be thinking about and tips around it. If you guys have any more information or advice for beating your first Omega, let us know in the comments. But I'll be back for a proper Savage dedicated one, since it's a lot harder. Until then, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.